That's the doorbell at Jimmy's house. Now, when you come to my house, my doorbell sounds like this.
Welcome to People's Radio United Monthly Show. I'm Tim BestBudz. I'm here with Steve Shagwell. How you doing, Steve?
Good as always. Good as always. You know, ready to raise some hell and talk some smack on the air.
And we're also here with Pastor Mac V.
What's
Hello?
up?
Hey, how you doing?
What's up? I'm good.
So yeah, why don't we? Everyone knows me and Steve already. Why don't you introduce yourself real quick and tell them a little bit about you, who you are, and then we'll get going.
So I'm a pastor in a large Christian denomination in the United States. Active with young adults. Really active with LGBT rights, social justice rights. Grew up in Queens, New York in the 80s, so saw police brutality at its best and finest, and just using my calling through the church to, one, show Christianity as something different than what might be mainstream, and also using it as an opportunity and a platform to show that there is a better way for the way we can live together.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't usually equate Christianity with compassion or caring or anything that I view as moral or good sometimes. So it's nice to see somebody using it for something good. I guess I applaud that. So yeah, let's go into the upcoming shows real quick. Steve, I guess we'll start with my non-objective opinion. This weekend, I'm going to be talking with Op Stop Suicide. We did an earlier show when we were on video, but now we're on radio, so we're going to do a whole new show with them, and it should be pretty awesome and informative. And Op Stop Suicide is a really, really important op and an issue, and I think people really need to listen to that show and take some notes and try to get involved and help people who really need help. And then we go to I Fought the Law.
Yep, iFoughtTheLaw.info. Last month when I checked in, I said I've been dealing with these injuries to my arms and kind of limited in my activities because of that. I've also been very busy with a commercial endeavor, the website called Your Band Sucks, where it's kind of a joke thing where I write bad reviews of bands and just trash talk them, and it's a joke. They're in on it, and it's all good fun. So I am moving back into getting going with iFoughtTheLaw.info. I made contact with I did this thing where I interviewed Alex Salazar, and I was like, wow, interviewing an ex-cop, that'll make for a good episode. And as it turned out, he talked in depth about a couple aspects of what's going on within law enforcement that's making cops turn bad. And but he mentioned a lot of other things, and it occurred to me there's a lot of things. So now it's going to be like a series within a series where I talk to former law enforcement officers, and I did make contact with a former Border Patrol agent who is wanting to be interviewed. So that's going to be my next one. I'm going to be interviewing this former Border Patrol agent who actually I haven't talked to him at length about this yet, but the long and short of it is he actually wound up getting screwed over by the law enforcement culture. So he was an active Border Patrol agent, and he kind of wound up getting screwed over. And I don't know. That's going to be interesting, especially with, what's going on with immigration and everything else. It's kind of timely to be talking to a former Border Patrol agent. That's something that most people wouldn't have thought of, and I wouldn't have thought of. I just chanced to run into the guy and got to know him. So, and then there'll be others too. I'm looking at a former police chief, and then a couple of other former officers. So we're going to have several episodes where we talk about what's going on in law enforcement culture and what factors are causing bad behavior in certain law enforcement officers. So I'm excited about that. And I will probably set up that interview this week. So sometime this next month, I'll be back to that schedule of putting out an interview every couple weeks, and I will stick to it this time.
Cool, yeah. I know some of the guests you got coming are going to be really awesome. I'm excited too. What else do we have? We got BestBudz. That's sporadic. It happens when me and Ryan feel like doing it, so we got some more coming up soon. We had some computer issues we're still dealing with, and once those are fixed, we'll be back with Buds. And what else? Oh, there's gonna be a new show where I'm gonna rant about some things, but that's coming up soon too. real short little Tim rant snippets, things about issues that piss me off or whatever. So yeah, we're moving on. Steve, what do we have to talk about today? I guess we're talking about what do we all think, is Trump going to end up getting impeached, or is he going to resign, or neither? Let's start with Pastor Mac V, because he hasn't said anything in a while.
Yeah, I was just sitting back listening, looking forward to listening to Steve's interviews with those former law enforcement officers. That would be really interesting. I'm kind of really on the fence here, because my fear is actually his vice president. And so I actually want him to stay in office long enough for like the whole ship to get caught doing wrong.
Yeah,
because definitely. If it just ends up all falling on Trump, then Pence becomes VP, and that's like the alt-right sort of crazy conservative Christian's wet dream. And it's really a frightening deal.
I was going to ask you about that as a Christian, because I think, in my opinion, that could be more dangerous, because it would give the Congress and the Senate much more power, because they look at the right-wing Christians look at Pence as like a real, I don't know, like a leader and a good guy who should be president. And
Pence is like their savior. Pence to them would be like their savior that would bring about what they think like Christianity is. It sort of falls short of everything that Jesus talks about, but that's maybe a different conversation. But it's just this really sad thing that, like, what would happen with Pence would be he would be a politician who could go in and know how to do the workings within our government to get all of these restrictions and all of these things put back in place. And so a Pence presidency means not only do black folks and LGBT folks, but poor white folks need to start being scared too.
Yeah, I see it as being just probably much worse, because he's legitimized. Trump is like a clown. People, even the people that support him, it's like they say, some people have equated it to like a sporting event or a wrestling match. They're just cheering for their team. They don't even carry scum. They just like the evil. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, man. They're just basically like, we're going to vote Republican because Democrats are all evil, because that's what we think Democrats are all evil. Total blindedness to the fact that everything that they hate, they hate the corporate fat cat who makes money off of, their sweat and labor. Well, that's the guy you just made president. Yep. And so, yeah, it makes no sense at all.
Yeah, I'm with neither party. I think they're both scummy. Sorry if you're a Democrat.
No,
I'm
not. So
Yeah, I'm an anarchist. They make me sick, man. I honestly, no one can tell me the difference between the Democrats and Republicans other than the Republicans are blatant about it and the Democrats try to pretend that they're not like that.
oh
Other
yeah,
than that,
for sure.
I don't see any difference. Shagwell, what's your take? Oh, but what do you think's going to happen? That's what the question was. I mean, how do you see it going?
I,
Because
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I hope it's neither him resigning anytime soon or impeachment proceedings happening anytime soon. Because, like, I want the whole cabinet to sort of have to get ripped apart. I think that if it just lands on Trump, it's not going to be better for the nation. And so that's sort of my answer. So I'm not taking A or B. I'm making my own answer.
Yeah, it's very obvious at this point. Okay, Trump in cahoots with Putin, that's just a foregone conclusion at this point. Like, even some of his most brainwashed supporters are saying, well, maybe there's something there, you know. But what's now becoming clear, too, is other people in the Republican Party are involved. Pretty much everybody orbiting Trump is involved. And it appears there's other people in the Republican Party who are not so closely aligned with Trump that are involved. They all need to be nailed for this. And you're right. If Trump goes down quick enough, they won't get nailed for it. Now, unfortunately, the way I think it's going to play out is Trump's going to be called to the floor by the mainstream politicians. He's going to be called to the floor by the House and Senate, and they're going to say, okay, here's what we have on you. This is prison. This is possibly actually a death penalty. This is high treason. So you are going to resign. And what they'll do is they'll blame it on mental instability. They'll blame it on mental illness. I think they're going to say he's mentally ill. He has to resign. And he'll resign under this whole thing of mental illness and avoid the whole deep investigation into the collusions with Russia and with Erdogan over in Turkey. And, you know.
I don't think he's being investigated with Erdogan, but I think more than anything with Putin, I think the issue with him and Russia that's being investigated is laundering money probably for Russian mobsters. I could
That's
be wrong,
definitely
but
going on.
that's what I thought they were investigating him for. I thought the Putin stuff maybe not. I don't know. You know, I'm sure they just look at him as a joke like the rest of the world does. But I don't know. I look at the whole thing and I'm like, he's such an egomaniac. It could go either way. It's like he could say, screw this. They can try to impeach me. I'll beat it because I beat everything in my life. I could pay my way out of this. Or he could say, I'm not gonna lose here with this impeachment, so I'll just do it on my terms and I'll say I quit because this and that and blah blah blah. So I don't know. It could go either way. But when Pence, if Pence doesn't get destroyed in this whole thing, which I'm thinking that even the Democrats like him more than Trump, you know, he's not as insane.
Right.
He'll stick to their.
Well, they like him because really, I mean, I get in trouble all the time with the circles that I run around with because I say that Hillary and Bill Clinton are literally just neo-Dixiecrats. And so, sure, the Democrats love Pence because he wants to bring back the old South. I mean, he wants to make an autocratic system where there are aristocrats who sort of call the shots over everything, and and then there's the 95% of us who have nothing. So yeah, they of course they're going to want Pence because Pence will do the dance and make it all look pretty and political. Where the upside to Trump, God, I can't believe I just said that, is the guy's a wild card. Like, you literally know, they don't know what he's going to say in the next moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like the biggest leak of their top secret information lately.
Yeah.
He is.
I mean, like, you have the president of the United States who has to be given all the secrets that we have, and this dude can't keep his mouth shut for nothing.
Yep.
Doesn't he remind you of one of those stereotypical mob bosses?
Who, Trump?
Yeah, like if he, I mean, I know he's not Italian, but he tries to emulate that. He's, you know, he just tries to look all tough and act like that, and I don't know.
Well, he doesn't remind me of a mob boss, and the reason why is because, you know, mob bosses, those are actually scary. Those are actually scary people. Trump is a paper tiger. I mean, like, I don't think he's going to dig in and resist resigning, because at his core, the man is a coward. You see him all the time posturing tough and saying tough things and talking like a tough guy. But if you look closely at the situations he's in where he does it, he's always safe. He's always surrounded by allies. He's always got some kind of bully pulpit, whether it's through the media or whatever. You know, he wouldn't be saying this shit and acting this tough if it wasn't safe for him to do so. He's a total paper tiger, and mob bosses aren't paper tigers. Those are people who talk tough and then they back it up. People disappear and wind up in the bottom of a river. You know, Trump's a joke. He's a pussy. I don't see him as a mob boss at all. I can understand where you say he's trying to be one, but he misses bombs, the mark by so much.
Yeah. So what do we do if you're right though, Steve? Yeah, he's like a bitchly version of a mob boss.
Yeah.
So now this is what I'm thinking. If anything happens to Trump and Pence becomes president, it's going to be almost like a Hillary Clinton kind of thing, minus a few. You know, like if Hillary had won, everyone would be sitting down and she could basically be doing almost everything like Trump does in a much nicer way with a smile. And they'd all sit down and take it, and a few whacked out racists would be mad because Hillary's doing it and not Trump. Yeah. But now you got, you know, the ultra racist in office. So the ultra racists are like that. The Democrats back off. But now when Pence comes in, he's a little bit smoother. He's going to piss off a few of them with the gay rights and some things like this. But they're still all working for the same corporations in the end. I think we're going to lose a lot of people on the streets if Pence comes in, and I'm worried about that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to happen. You know, I think, I think people are kind of weary of, you know, trying to fight Trump when every day it's like a different person they're trying to fight. It's like, okay, who's this guy today and how are we going to deal with him today? I think people are weary of that. And if Trump goes, they're just going to be like, well, yeah, Pence sucks, but at least he's not Trump and I'm tired and I'm just going to sit out for a while. You know, I totally see that happening.
Pence is the sort of dude that I could totally see, like, he's like the post-war, post sort of major catastrophe president who comes in and acts like a savior and drops in martial law, and before you know it, you are honestly living like sheep and you become aware of it. Like, I mean, like the whole dystopia sort of setting is the guy that I see Pence could be that leader. And that's what scares me, because he has, you've got to have the government base and you've got to have control of like the voice of what is religion in your area. And he's got control of both of those. Like all the big loudmouth, bully pulpit sort of preachers will all be backing Pence. And the government will be just fine with what he's doing because it'll make the nation better. And so you'll have a large chunk of the citizenry that'll just be like, oh yeah, he's just making the nation better. Everybody just relax. It's not going to be bad. And before you know it, we're living in this dystopia sort of martial law state. And I see that. I totally see that with a Pence presidency.
Yeah,
worse than it is now. Yeah.
Well, tyranny will come in one of three forms. There's like three avenues for tyranny that I see, and one is corporate, one is government, and one is religious. And Pence is the guy who can hit on all three and bring them together. He is a terrifying guy. I think, so,
yeah, I agree.
I think whatever's going to come our way is not going to be good, unfortunately. It's kind of like,
we need to get a tape of Pence being gay or something to bring him down. That's the only thing that's gonna do it.
Yeah, well, that man's got skeletons in his closet because, people that judgmental are hypocrites.
Normally.
That's my point. Anyone who hates gay people that much, or any people, but especially I've noticed that with these really ultra-right religious, I hate the gay people. That's all they worry about all day and night, railing on it. It's because it ends up in the end, 9 times out of 10, they are gay and they just hate that fact for some reason. And they go.
Or they had some bad experience in college that messed them up forever.
Yeah, I guess so.
They live their whole entire life questioning whether or not, what they did was right, and now they have to justify themselves in the eyes of God, so they're going to persecute everyone.
I don't know, but wow.
Yes, they have to repent for that. They have to repent for that bro job they got at the kegger.
Exactly.
But they gotta find. Because he pulls this whole, I'm not going to be, and I won't even go to a business meeting or a meal with another woman if my wife's not there, and all kinds of, he's way out with, he's almost Quakerish or something, right?
I've got a really odd take on that, man. I've gotten shit from some of my feminist friends and female pastors and stuff like that about my take on that. I sort of get where that dude's coming from. He came at it from the wrong direction. But I sort of get where he was coming from with that. And I know I get shit. I'm sort of on the outside when I say that.
Well, enlighten us how. I don't understand.
The male interaction, especially guys like Pence, and the male interaction with females is so hypersensitive that for a guy like that to interact or be in a situation where it's just him and a female, even if it's a colleague or whatever, it becomes a situation where it's his word against her word. And he never wants to be put in a situation where he has to argue against what I think is a really defended position. And the last thing he wants is to be with some reporter who has a wild hair and gets an opportunity to say, Pence said this to me.
Well, he could
and now
record everything.
They've got sunk on.
You could solve that with a recording device. I think he said he did it for religious reasons, though.
Yeah.
The way he made it sound to me was that these evil temptresses are out there to get him, and you can't always be there to control yourself. He didn't say it right.
I don't want to give the dude props because I know his angle on it was totally messed up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I could sort of see, I couldn't on that one. I was he gives us so much to not like him for that was one that I was okay, I can give that a pass.
Yeah, but he could have just said it. I don't want to get set up for anything. You see how they screwed over O'Reilly and Trump with their own words and their own actions. I don't want that to happen to me. That could have been, I don't know.
But let's be honest. What does that sort of honesty actually give you in the media? He would get labeled as an anti-woman, freaking misogynist pig, even though he already is. They would label him as that, no matter what.
But at least he's doing it for a reason.
Yeah.
I see that as just protecting
I'm
himself.
just saying.
I mean, yeah, but if he backs O'Reilly or Trump on that, yeah, of course he's a misogynist pig. But I'm saying,
Sure.
I was saying that as like a stupid, I was going, like sarcasm, I guess.
Yeah, I know. But for him, a religious reason is a good reason, and that's why for him that's a good go for him.
Oh, because I mean, he could have. I don't know, but I mean, a man can do the same thing, not like that. I mean, but he could say, "Oh, he said something to me, and I have this kind of, you know what I mean? It's his word against the other person. He leaked some information to me. He did this or that."
I think it's
a
just
public official. It's like people.
I think,
but our society is so hypersensitive. I think about the interactions with males of power with females. Period. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and so while his response isn't good, I could sort of see where it was coming from.
Yeah,
because it's hypersensitive to Puritanism.
Right now. I think it's just Puritanism. I think he's just like afraid of the sexual power of women, because he's coming from that place. He's coming from that place of, well, we'd all be doing just fine if that temptress Eve hadn't led us into eating the fruit, and it's like the same thing you see in fundamentalist Islam, or any kind of fundamentalism where you have this, it's always like women are evil temptresses and we have to be careful around them and, kind of thing. And I just think that's where he's coming from myself, I mean,
yeah, because you could just say I don't meet with anybody alone, but singling out as women, it just seems like you're a creepy person that can't control yourself. And I mean, look at his buddies, look at everybody around him. I mean, that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the underlying thing that he's admitting, right? I mean, he's basically saying that, yeah, I've got this rule because. Yeah, I'm going to look at a female's breasts if I'm eating lunch with her, and she's going to feel creeped out by it because I'm going to be really obvious about it. I mean, that's sort of what he's saying. And so I have to lock myself down with these ridiculous rules because I'm going to do these really ridiculous things.
Well, he probably would, I mean, I'm sorry, I look at him and I think perv, at the very least, at the very best, like when I look at him, the very best scenario I see is him lusting after teenage girls.
Oh my God.
That's the best scenario I see with him.
That's not very good either.
Sort of like the guy that I probably would say, yeah, I want you to get a background check before you go on the youth trip.
Yeah, he needs to do that for sure. Oh, but yeah, I don't know, man. He's a character unto himself, and yeah, we're in a situation right now where we're just fucked either way. Like either Trump's going to keep going and we're fucked, or Trump's going to get impeached and we're going to get Pence and we're fucked. We're just fucked.
I got it. Even if Pence comes in and if Trump goes out, Pence comes in. Either way, in 4 more years, I see the other people like a Democrat will set us straight. They just don't get it.
Yeah, it's going to go. The tyranny of the right will be replaced by the tyranny of the left. Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not going to get better if the other side takes over.
No, it's not. It's just going to be different. It's just going to suck in a different way.
Right. Yeah. It's just going to be, it's literally going to be like, I'm going to drown over here or get burnt over there. How do you want to die?
Yeah. It's like, do we put the baby in the blender or do we put the baby in the oven? Those are the choices. And I'm just over here like, God, no, I don't want to do either. And that's why I don't vote. And that's why I identify as anarchist. So, but,
I just voted for the guy that wanted to, his first executive order would have been to make pot legal.
Who? Who's executive?
Who?
Oh, Johnson.
Oh,
You know the
yeah.
guy who doesn't know where any place outside of the United States is? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, cool guy, but an idiot, man. It's just like it's
Oh, yeah.
too bad he didn't have the. Well,
he was
it's
a
just too bad.
libertarian candidate, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
I
like
mean,
any of them.
I don't know. I liked him, but he's an idiot. Like it just would not have been good if he was in there because you can't just. I don't know if somebody's going to like have all that power. They can't just have good intentions. They also have to be smart enough to make their good intentions reality. And that guy is not smart enough. I mean, I'm sorry, I like him, but he's not leadership material. Not when it comes to running the country.
We are saying that in as we live in the wake and the ebb and flow of a Trump presidency. Let's say that a Trump presidency. We're talking about someone, at least like, yeah. I think about like, what did we have to do? What did we do wrong to get to this place as a society that a guy like that can use the system and become president?
I'll tell you right now, we did wrong. We every 4 years, every time there's an election, what do people do? They go vote for the same two parties over and over and over and over and over again. And both parties are taking our rights. They're catering to the billionaires and millionaires and corporations and banks over the people. And that's the problem. We need somebody that's for the people in there. Somebody that's going to say, hey, screw the rich people. They already got their stuff. We got to take care of the small people, all of them, around the world, not just, you know what I mean? Nobody's doing that. Even the candidates and the other parties weren't worried about people around the world because they were still pro-apartheid and pro all kinds of terrible things. But just here they'd have a better, maybe give us health care and stuff. That's ridiculous. We need somebody that says all the people in the world need to have human rights, need to survive, and need to be taken care of. And we have the funding and we have the capabilities to do it, even if we got to super tax those ultra-rich people. Who cares? It's not that hard.
Unfortunately, the last person that talked like that got hung from a tree about 2,000 years ago.
Oh, you're talking about Christ.
Yeah.
He got nailed to one, actually, didn't he?
Well, hung, nailed, same difference. He was hanging from it.
Yeah, that's true. No, my theory on how we got here, like there were a lot of factors, but I think a really big one was Obama. I mean, I'll just come out and say it, like America, particularly conservative America, does have a racist problem. I mean, they maybe don't want to go out and lynch black people. I mean, some of them obviously do because you hear them saying it, but like a lot of them don't want to go out and lynch black people, but they're not, like a black president set them off. I mean, the smear campaigns on Obama were ridiculous. I remember seeing one where they were passing around an article that he had canceled the National Day of Prayer. So I go online and I go to the White House website and there's video of Obama leading the National Day of Prayer. But they were like making up all these stories about him. He's a Muslim, he's, a terrorist and this kind of stuff. Like the way white conservative America freaked out, like they weren't ready for a black president. And after a black president, they wanted a Donald Trump. It scared the hell out of them. And that's not a popular thing to say because they love to say, no, I just hate him because of his issues. He's a socialist, da-da-da-da-da. Obama was not that much of a socialist. Obama didn't hate police. I mean, Christ, the guy did pretty much nothing for liberals the whole time he was in office.
That's why I don't like him. I actually don't like him because, there were 43 white presidents that did a lot of shit for white people for a lot of long time. We get one black guy, and this guy all of a sudden has to be the president to everybody, which means to white people. And all the opportunities that he had to set some real serious records straight he sort of took the coward's position or the political position so that he could be a president for 8 years. And so, and still got praised for it, which I think is ridiculous because, at best, I think his presidency is somewhere in the middle of all of our presidents, if not in the bottom third, because he did a lot of nothing for the poor and the impoverished in our nation, especially those of minority status. And it's something I'm going to hold against him. It's something I hold against the Clintons, who claim to be like black folks all over the place. Were like, Bill Clinton was our first black president. What type of crazy shit is that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing too about, white conservative America. Like you hit the nail on the head. Obama didn't really do shit for minorities. He didn't really do shit for poor people. About all he did was wear a Nobel Peace Prize and order drone strikes on villages in the Middle East, right? And yet,
how the hell do you win a Nobel Peace Prize and ramp up Bush-era drone strikes? Like,
absolutely.
You're killing more people than GW, and you win a Nobel Peace Prize?
Right. But now here's the thing, right? Like, even with all the police brutality, Obama was like, you'd see him, he was saying, these protesters, they're out there for a reason, but policing is hard and cops have a really hard job to do and they deserve our respect, and he said those words, and white conservative America is like, he hates cops, he's a communist, and all this shit. He did nothing for liberals. He did nothing for minorities. He did nothing for poor people. But to hear white conservative America talk, he did everything for those people and put white people in FEMA camps and took away their guns.
Right.
They'll still tell you that happened, even though it didn't happen.
You would think that's exactly what happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, I think that had a lot to do with Trump getting there. I think, white America has more racism in it than it wants to admit, kind of like this kind of in the gut racism that isn't really that obvious. It's more the kind of racism where if I see a group of black people who dress like black people coming down the street, I'm going to cross to the other side of the street, but I don't hate them. Kind of racism. And,
right.
He, when a black president got in there, that just scared the shit out of him.
Yeah, because I hate Obama and I hate Bush and I hate Clinton and I hate Trump and I hate them all for the same reasons, because they push the same policies through.
Yeah.
I hate Obama not because he pushes the same.
Differently.
Yeah, they hate him because he's black and they're racist, and they blame him for their racism. Obama made America racist. I see that all over on social media. How the hell did one bad president, who's no worse than the others, especially not worse than this one, make you a racist? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
All he did was reinforce white supremacy and open the way for Trump, basically. He didn't do anything any white president wouldn't do.
Yep.
I don't get it. They should have applauded him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it confuses. It's just straight racism. So many reasons to hate Obama and every other president, but him not because he's black. That would be like saying I hate every president because they're white, not because of their policies.
Right.
They all got, same agenda.
Right.
Yeah. In our lifetime, we certainly haven't had a president worthy of our respect. If there ever was such a thing in the history of this country, we certainly haven't seen it in our lifetime.
Yep.
So
Obama started the war on journalists. Maybe even Bush started that even. It's a nice segue to our war on journalists is the next topic we were supposed to bring up.
Yes.
But yeah, that's another issue. Like right now, journalists are under siege. They had Erdogan's people beating up protesters the other day, and he's sitting there meeting with the President of the United States, shaking hands and smiling, and he has more journalists in prison and murdered in his country than anywhere else. It's the number one prison for journalists, right? Turkey. So that's basically like the president saying, "Yeah, screw journalists." He calls the news fake news.
Well, it's bad when that shit that happened when they were protesting Erdogan. It was so bad. The chief of police there actually issued a statement condemning how the protesters were treated. Now let that sink in. The chief of police in Washington, D.C. issued a statement condemning how the protesters were treated. And guess what? Nothing's been done about it still.
Wait, treated by who?
Because it's not been called to task at all on it.
Wait. But the videos I seen was Erdogan's guards beating up protesters, and then the police beating up the same protesters while pushing the guards away gently.
Really? Because that may have happened, but the police chief issued a statement saying, denouncing the way the protesters were treated, and yet what I'm saying is nobody has held Erdogan to task. It was so bad that maybe the police chief was just doing it to cover their ass. I don't know. But that was said. And even though that was said, has anybody said anything to Erdogan about it? Has Trump? Has anybody in Congress?
Why would he? Why would he? Why would Trump say anything? I mean, this is exactly what he would love to be able to do here. But we have this little bugaboo of a constitution that he sort of has to play nice with. But if he
Obama didn't have to play nice with no DAPL. They can beat up protesters and assault them. Easy.
There is that.
Right. But, I mean, they're going to dance around it. They're going to find ways. He's not going to say this guy's doing wrong. He's not going to call him out on it because it's the same thing he wants to be able to do. Anything that says anything against the Trump presidency is going to then get his ire.
Exactly.
And it's going to be it's fake news. They're always trying to lie about me. I'm trying to make America great, and they're trying to stop me. They want to lie about me, and all I want to do is make America great. Watch me make jobs. I make jobs. I'm the greatest job maker ever. I'm the least racist person you're ever going to meet, sort of an individual. Come on, watch me go. That's the Trump presidency. And of course, he wants media to only say he's great because that's how he wants to control it. Because it's how he controls all of his businesses, right? Win, lose, or draw. And there's a lot more losing in his businesses if you ever really look into the history of all his businesses. Win, lose, or draw, he wants to control the narrative that everybody reads about it. So he's the greatest businessman ever. But I've done better as a paper salesman as a little child than he has as a businessman, actually. It's ridiculous.
It really is. And the whole thing is America's sleeping on this one. Like, everybody should be alarmed right now because I'm not even really paying attention. And here's what I know has happened. A reporter got arrested and sentenced for laughing at Jeff Sessions. That happened. Oh, yeah. And then another reporter was thrown out by a Trump staffer from a press conference because they asked a question that person didn't like. They were not warned or anything. They asked the question. I don't like that question. You're out of here, is basically what happened. So that happened. The protesters getting beat up outside the Turkish embassy, no repercussions for anybody, and then there's been there's other stuff I've heard about that I can't remember right now. Like, right now we are seeing an unprecedented attack on the media. It's really, really bad, and it's bold, and it's brazen, and America's kind of sleeping on this one because even the media isn't really taking it to task like they should. It affects them the most, and they're not really talking about it like they should.
Because
I think not only does it affect... Go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, but not only does it affect like journalism, but I think it affects anyone who works in a field that needs to value the ability of free speech. And so, like, I'm talking directly to my profession, right? Like, so they've got a group of Christians who are preaching one way, and I'm like, no, you're totally getting that wrong. Here's my take. Here's how I'm reading this. Here's how I'm reading this guy Jesus taking care of the poor and the homeless and the widow, and feeding everyone and wanting care and love for everyone. And that's not what the system wants to hear. And now I can be punished for that. Because it starts with the journalist, right? And then it just sort of moves its way along. And so this is really important, that we pay attention to it now before this really explodes, and it becomes anything that you say that goes against whoever's in power or goes against the power structure at all, can be silenced. And silenced with no repercussion and nobody knowing and nobody saying anything about it, is something that I think our nation does need to fear. Our journalists need to be more loud about it, because this is a value thing that it's sort of a stepping stone to martial law and sort of a dystopian state, when you can quiet the voices of the ones who are speaking out against the ills of a government.
Yep. That's a major stepping stone. And, I feel like to me, that's the biggest sign that we're supposed to head towards martial law. Reporters are going along with it. They're literally silencing journalists, and journalists aren't fighting back. It's almost like they got their marching orders to let this happen or something. And maybe that's just me with my tinfoil hat, because I'll be the first to admit, you can see my tinfoil hat from space. It shines so bright. But you have to admit, it kind of looks like this is supposed to happen. And the reporters are going along with it. Because how else do you explain them not speaking up on something that affects them so directly?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, this goes... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep cutting you off.
But it's the same... No, you didn't. I just jumped in there. It speaks the same to, sort of the hypocrisy of the Christian right. I mean, how can you say that somebody like Trump sort of is your flag bearer as president to what you believe Christian values are? Like, I've been listening to you guys and your Christian values, and Trump is none of those things. Like, this guy is a womanizer. This guy has been through more wives than come on. Like, he has divorces like their afternoon lunches. And you guys are like, we're going to get right behind this guy. And so that there is something else moving this along to this place where this nation just can't go to. Like, we've got to push back against this with all that we have, or it's just not going to turn out well.
I absolutely agree. I mean, Tim and I have been sitting here for years and years trying peaceful means to make things happen, because we don't want to see it go to violence. But I think, Tim, you heard me say this last week. I think we failed. I think it's headed towards where peaceful solutions aren't going to be viable anymore. I think we're really fast headed that way, and it breaks my heart, but
I think that's an unfortunate truth.
Yeah, and I don't like violence. I don't like. I mean, dude, I just want to do my website and write my poetry and go perform it, and I don't want to take up arms against the government. That just Life's too short for that. But it kind of looks like we're all being backed into a corner. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, it's just a scary place to get to when sort of the core of the teachings that I sort of live with and by are, with everything that you have, try to show love and compassion and caring for the other. But I think, like, deep down inside of that teaching, there's a place of self-sacrifice for the sakes of the others. And I think that there are people who are going to be driven to that. And unfortunately, yeah, it looks like it's going to lead towards violence that I don't want. That's the last thing that I want. But sometimes an evil force pushes so hard that the only way to respond to it is by a stronger means.
Yeah.
It's because previous generations didn't speak up and fight this like they needed to and let it get to this bad. I mean, we've been watching it slowly just get worse and worse, more militarized, more money going to military, less money going to people, police being allowed to slaughter people in the streets and walk and not even lose their job anymore. It's ridiculous. I'm going to pull Poe up in here. She wants to talk to us about something, so just keep talking and I'm going to get her in here this call too.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I love Judy. Glad she's joining us. Yeah, it's and I hope to God I'm wrong. I really hope to God I'm wrong. I really hope there can be some kind of peaceful resolution, because I just, it's like I got shit I want to do, and fighting the government with, in a armed conflict is not it. That's not what I want to do. But I don't want to be bent over and take it like a bitch either.
Yeah, I mean, that's not what anyone wants to do, but like I said, you're dealing with violent people that are willing to oppress and cage people. Oh, she didn't answer. It's hard to fight violence with nonviolence if they don't care,
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing, here's an interesting thing. The person who seems like got a lot through the movement of nonviolence was Martin Luther King, right? Like, he's at least the person who gets put up on the pedestal as the one who gained so much for the actions of nonviolence. Until he did what? What did he do? He said, I'm finally got to this place where I'm going to cash in, and now we want to see some financial equity. And they dropped his ass like a fly. And so, the government, the top ranks, are always willing to give a little bit to sort of appease society and sort of allow everything to keep on moving. But the second he went after, you listen to his last speeches, it is all about, now it's time for us to go after real equality, and that's with money. Like, we need to be able to make our own money and support our own communities and build our own wealth like everybody else was allowed to. He talked about how the government undergirded white immigrants who came over and didn't do the same when blacks got freed from slavery. And so he's like, these are the things that we need built in now. And they dropped him like a fly because the powers that be don't want that. They didn't want that.
Yeah, but these people now, they romanticize him. Like, the white people then hated him, but they see like, oh, if everyone now was just like he was then, you know what? They were marching in the streets and people were out there counter-protesting and calling them all kinds of horrible racist slurs. I mean, it was they think it's like this nice, like all these people were all getting along and a couple bad people. It's pretty much like it was now with any big protester out there. They hate them because they're racist and they don't want to give up their white privilege or their rights to anybody else, even if these people being equal.
I'll just say it like it is. White people love to romanticize Martin Luther King because they want to believe that Martin Luther King never really, caused that much trouble. And that's the whole thing, it's it's okay for black people to demand equality as long as they don't do it too loudly, or as long as they don't scare us too much with it. As long as they don't demand it so much that they'll actually get it. Because let's face it, well, you know where I'm going with this. I mean, that's why white people romanticize Martin Luther King, and most of them overlook the fact that he said things like, "Those who make a peaceful revolution impossible make a violent revolution inevitable." They overlook the fact that he said riots are the language of the unheard. They kind of conveniently ignore that, because what they want to do is they want to create this kind of submissive black protester, and then hold him up as an example and be like, "See, black people, this is what you should be like," because he got some legislation that ultimately didn't accomplish a whole lot in the grand scheme of things passed. So be like him. We don't want to have to deal with it too much. That's why they romanticize Martin Luther King. He was nothing like what they're holding up and saying he was, for one thing. And for another thing, that's their motive for doing it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like they rewrote history. I don't know. That's what they seem to always do. They rewrite history and make it so it's all about them. This guy was really some nice protester that all the white people loved and got behind, except for a few in the KKK. That just wasn't the case.
No,
he was hated. He was hated. You think some of these protesters today are hated? You think calling what's that guy's name? Kaepernick or something?
Oh, Colin Kaepernick. Yeah.
Yeah. You think he's hated by these? Oh my God, they have no idea. But the same people say, "Oh, how come he couldn't be more like Martin Luther King?" I don't understand.
If anything, Colin Kaepernick was 100 times less offensive than Martin Luther King was in his time.
Literally, yes.
Yeah, and that's the deal, is that history has whitewashed him so much that, he's looked at like this cupcake of a leader who sort of made the savage beasts sort of calm in their protests. But this was a highly intellectual individual who knew exactly what he was doing and knew exactly what he was leading to, and that's exactly why he got killed. Because if he was this nice, passive voice that had no power really and had no sway, they would have not worried about killing him. Like, he would be alive today if he was really the nice, passive voice that could just calm all the black folks down, and everybody would just continue to protest, and they'd get stuff here and there, but really nothing would change. No, they killed him because he was a force to be reckoned with, and he was going for real change and had real power starting to get behind him, and they needed to quench that instantly.
Yep, and when you said they whitewashed him, after they killed him, they whitewashed him. That's like exactly what happened. And Tim said, they kind of rewrite history. Like, this is the truth. White people, one, they get to write history, and they do write history. And I'm hearing all this crap about how our schools are teaching us to hate white people. Well, I'm going to tell you what. When I was in school, I didn't learn about the Trail of Tears. I didn't learn about the Native genocide. I didn't learn that we killed more Native Americans than the Nazis killed Jews. I didn't learn any of that from school. You know where I learned that? From Anthrax and Iron Maiden, from their song lyrics. Because school wasn't talking about it. The history books weren't talking about it.
Right.
Run for the Hills.
Yeah. Run to the Hills. Yeah, Indians by Anthrax. I mean, literally, if you want to learn true history, you got to go to song lyrics and stuff, because they're not going to allow it in our mainstream publications.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing now. We're all connected, and we have search engines and people to talk to, and, the whole world's a lot more connected. So now
we just have to be smart enough to filter out what is actual history and what is revisionist history. And I think that's the one. I think that's the problem that we're running into a bit now, is especially when we have conversations. When I have conversations with people around the Civil War, and there seem to be lots of people who tell black folks to get over the Confederate flag, but white folks can't get over the Civil War. But I digress. We just continue to have to sort of filter through the information we're being fed, especially when it comes to history, and making sure that it's solid, that it's actual history.
Yeah. What's going on here? I see Judith is trying to get in. Is she in?
I'm in, Tim.
Oh, hi, Judy. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine. Steve's here,
No.
too.
How you doing, Jude?
Hi, Steve.
And we have
This is
Pastor
just-
Mac V.
Nice
Pastor,
to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Pastor McVie is a very righteous guy.
We thought
You're
we'd
gonna
get
like
all
him.
religious today. You know me.
It's okay,
You know
because
how-
God's always with me. I got a direct line to him.
You know how
That's
religious
good,
I
that's
like
good.
to get.
So,
Yeah, we're just-
yeah, Judy, what's going on in your world?
Well, actually, I had a letter today, or not today, last week, that gave me a little hope in humanity and this generation. It was actually from Matt DeHart, and it was handwritten.
Wow.
And do you want me to tell you the story?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. It was on my desk with a bunch of other stuff, and I think a handwritten letter kind of stands out these days. And Bobby was moving it back and forth, trying to see how she could get to it and read it. And she couldn't take it anymore, and she said, "Can I read that letter?" I said, "Sure." And she read it, and she said, "You know, this guy's surreal." And it made such an impact on her that whistleblowers, people that sacrifice their freedom, lives, they're real, above and beyond her sister. Everybody else out there, they're human beings. They're alive. And she's 14, and most adults don't get that.
Yeah. Whistleblowers are so important, and there's a war on whistleblowers right now. And yeah, I encourage anybody who listens to this, write a letter to Matt DeHart. It's easy to find online how to write to him. What's the free Matt DeHart Twitter account? Well, if you just search free Matt DeHart on Twitter, you'll find it. And,
Yeah, the hashtag free Matt DeHart. You'll find it.
Yeah. And these whistleblowers, they all really need our support because, and then also, you know, read the things they say. They publish stuff, and the things they publish are moving, they're profound, they're insightful, they're brilliant. I mean, dude, the stuff that Barrett Brown was putting out when he was in prison, you know, was just, it made me laugh, and it was so, there was like all this wisdom in there at the same time. And you know, some of the stuff Jeremy Hammond has said has been really, you know, really hard hitting. And these whistleblowers, I mean, they're doing what they do because they're very aware and very woke. You know, and they have a lot of things to say besides the information they're presenting that they've dug up, which, you know, that's just my opinion, but that's what I think.
I can speak for whistleblowers. I think I qualify for that one.
Well, yeah.
But I can directly talk about Matt. He lifted our house up. There was no ego involved. It touched my daughter that, you know what, Mom, all this time you take away from me doing what you do. She could only really relate to her sister.
Mm-hmm.
Matt's letter, she saw, yes, all these people are real. This is just not about my sister.
Right.
And to put it kind of in layman's terms, she cut me some slack for what I do. That's not easy with a teenager these days. But,
Can you, wow, I just brain farted right in the middle of
want
the
me to
sentence.
grab the letter?
Yeah, can
Yeah,
you read
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Unless if it's personal, don't. I was just asking.
No, Tim, I can slurry over anything personal. Because you can say in there at one point, no matter, I believe, don't quote me, no matter what people say about you, I believe you're a hero. I don't know what that meant, but I'm there.
Sweet.
No matter what people say about her.
I've only heard people say good things about her. Well, then again, everybody knows if you talk shit about Judy, I will kick your ass so hard.
And if you don't, Tim will beat you down.
Tim,
What role are you going to play in this violence?
in who? I'm sorry. What?
I think she said Pastor
You're
Matt.
you're going to beat people up, and then if you didn't, someone's going to beat you up.
Are you still here, Pastor Matt?
What are you gonna do?
I try not to beat people up. I'm sort of big and opposing already. I'm not like this like total non-violence individual, but
Oh my goodness.
I try not to just outright beat the shit out of people because I can, but I just don't.
I'm looking at your picture. I am going to take you at your word.
That's
And
a good
personally,
thing.
I try to keep my hands to my side too.
Yeah. Well, Judy's basically family. So if somebody talks shit on her, I'll just knock them out.
Where'd that basically come from?
What's that?
Where'd
What?
basically come from? Like there was a doubt.
Basically,
Oh, basically just breaking it down to its bare simple. You know, it's like when you break it down to its simplest form, it's like that. I'll knock a motherfucker out who talks shit on Judy.
There you go. Bobby. Steve, go away. Tim's already got us in enough trouble.
So yeah, let's hear this. Let's hear this letter. I'm anxious to hear it.
She's looking for it right now. She found it when it was on my desk because it's handwritten, and now she's having difficulty. Imagine that one. You know, like, oh, she got an invitation from a university, so she's reading that. She said she's not.
Ah.
She's playing on my phone because she's on electronic lockdown.
Electronic lockdown.
Yes, she is.
I bet
Is
a
that
lot of
kind of-
people wish I was on
go ahead.
electronic lockdown.
You know what? You can wish in one hand, and you know what on the other hand. See where it gets full first.
yeah.
I wouldn't make it through
Yeah,
the day without you, Tim.
Before you came in here, Judith, we were talking about Erdogan and his bodyguards beating up the protesters and how the police helped them.
Wait, let's back up. The police are hitting the protesters with billy clubs from one side, and Erdogan's goons are nailing them from the other side.
That's what I just said. And Steve said the
Oh, I'm
police had left
sorry.
a statement saying it was uncalled for how the bodyguards did that.
I have
Make a
no
statement.
doubt. Oh, I have no doubt that the police were beating down the protesters too. I'm just saying it was so awful that they tried to distance themselves from it and they tried to condemn it. That's how bad it was.
They partook
Yeah.
in it.
You know. So
And I'm not just saying that because Erdogan, oh, shoot. God be with me. Because Erdogan killed my daughter. I'm saying that because I watched it. I watched police
Yeah.
hit protesters, elderly protesters, with billy clubs, and Erdogan's goons kick them from the other side.
So the police are just basically trying to put it all on Erdogan's bodyguards. That makes perfect sense. Or should I say Spiegel's bodyguards?
They didn't tackle them. They didn't arrest any of them. They didn't even hit any of them. They just pushed them away as they helped them assault, beat, and arrest the protesters who were assaulted by them.
Let me ask you this.
Sickening.
I think they were taken off guard, which they're trained not to be taken off guard. But if this went down in your town, are the police going to hold somebody so they can get beat from the other side? No, that's a bad question, Tim. I worded that wrong. I'm going to take that back because the answer would be yes.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah,
The police out here will protect literal Nazis with swastika flags, screaming the most racist, hateful things, and stand against the people.
So will Twitter.
So what?
So will Twitter.
This is true. Twitter shadow
not beating
bans
people and spraying them and hurting them. It's just censoring them.
Well, yeah, Twitter shadow bans us because we talk about actual government abuse. Meanwhile, all these neo-Nazis and racists and shit, they get to just, run their mouth, and Twitter doesn't do shit about it. Twitter's even letting ISIS accounts go, but we're shadow banned.
Yeah, YouTube's the same. Remember,
Yeah.
I told you before, we can use the word Nazi freely. That doesn't even get looked up. But username Serena Shim is blocked.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
That means, you've made a difference, gentlemen. Oh my gosh, Bobby had to just tell me to put a comma in my text to you. Yes, I'm close. Is that good for you? We just had that conversation. She's like, Mom, there's a weird account. I was sweeping the driveway. And she said, excuse me? It's a letter. She's looking for it right now. I probably hid it for safekeepings. If I knew how to mute you, I would yell at her quietly, but since I can't, I don't know how. Bobby, hush. Find the card. Find the letter from that. Oh.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of a given, and there are a lot of good resources out there for people who want to film the police on how to film the police. I recommend Cop Watch, obviously. You just Google Cop Watch and you'll find Facebook account, you'll find all kinds of stuff. They have a lot of really good information on that. I got asked actually why I don't have Cop Watch information on my website, and mainly the reason why is because there's so much good information out there already, and it's easy to find. And I encourage people to look for it. If you want to get into cop watching, I mean, they're government employees. They should be, subject to oversight by civilians, like any other government employee. So, cop watching is, but Tim, you want to actually give out some tips on how to cop watch properly right now, right?
Well, no, I mean, I was just going to say, it's not even about cop watching. Those guys do it, for whatever reasons. They're out there all the time. But I'm saying, when you're driving and you see them messing with somebody, it's definitely good. The more people stop and aim a camera at them, I think the better. I think we all could do that. I don't think we should leave it up to a couple cop watchers. I think they should know there's cameras on them all the time watching them. They can't bully us. They can't say, stop filming me or this or that. That's why do they not want to be filmed? What do they have to hide? They're always shining the camera, the light at the camera, or trying to block off the shot. They're just, they did that to me the other night. This woman was on a bicycle. They were harassing her, and a cop, he's more worried about my camera and what I'm doing standing there 20 feet away from them, than what the woman's doing, what they're doing with their assault on this woman. It just shows they're crooked. Who other than a criminal is worried if you're filming them in public, walking, doing whatever on the street?
Well, yeah, if a cop's doing their job properly, they should have no problem being filmed. They should be happy they're being filmed so they can be seen doing their job properly and with respect. And, they should be happy about that, And if they're not happy about that, then you have to ask, just like they would ask us, what do you have to hide?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just being able to play the same game that they play with you, right? And so their questioning is always, well, what do you have to hide? And so that we should be allowed to play that same questioning back to them. Well, what do you have to hide? What are you going to do that's wrong so that I can't continue to film your activity when you're getting paid as a government employee? You're not operating as a private citizen. That's a different conversation. But you're operating as a government employee whose work is in the public, and therefore you should be allowed to be filmed and held under some sort of, God, I can't even think of like the word to use here.
Accountability.
Some basic accountability of the way you interact with citizens. That you can't just show up to people instantaneously and treat them like they're rag dolls, and that these people are beneath you. And even when somebody who is a criminal does something that is a criminal act, you are a trained individual and you are held to a higher standard than someone you would want to call a thug or a criminal. And so I expect more from police officers. I expect more from them because they want to say, well, we're trained and we know how to do this and we do this right and we have honor and we have dignity and we have, well, if you have those things, then you should be held to a higher standard and you should want to be filmed constantly, living up to those higher standards so that you can continuously say, see, this is how we roll. We do right. We do right. Constantly being able to say that. But the opposite is what's happening. No, don't film us because we're actually shady fucks. Yeah. And all we want to do is screw people over whenever we get a chance. And we took a job as a cop, because we were cowards and this was the way that we could have some sort of power in our life. Or, the myriad of reasons, like you're hearing about, cops who go and have things happen and then they don't go through like psychiatric exams and stuff like that, where you would go, wait a second, this guy's had a shooting, he's done these things and he's not getting like checked up and stuff like that. It's just craziness, the stuff that we allow cops to get away with.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Very well said, Pastor.
What's that, Judy?
Thank you.
Very well said.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because exactly, I'm going to say police officers, cops, if you're doing your job, you would want to be filmed. You would want that to be broadcast. You would want that to be spread, how you conduct yourself, because you have people looking up to you. You have children. We want to be able to say, if something's wrong, go to the police because you're going to be treated fairly.
Yeah, you want the community's trust, and if you're rightly earning it, you want to be seen rightly earning it.
That's exactly it, Steve.
So,
well, when I'm preaching, I want people to record me preaching. I don't never tell anybody to turn off their cameras when I'm preaching because I want that judged. I want that to go out and to be seen and to be judged against whatever else is out there, and that this is a right thing to be doing.
And you want to be an example for your community.
Right, right. And so when I'm on the campus that I work closely with, and I'm doing stuff to help the LGBT community there, I know that I'm going to be recorded of that, and I know that I'm going to have people that are going to say, hey, Pastor, why are you doing that stuff? And I'm going to say, I'm doing that stuff, and I'm doing it publicly because I think it's a standard that we need to be held up to and be seen doing these good things. And cops should want to do that same stuff on a routine traffic stop, or if you're locking up the worst drug bastard on a street corner, you should want to be videoed doing that the best way possible. If nothing else, to say, you know what, you probably could have taken this guy down in a different way, and it teaches you. You learn from it. But it's this total opposite sort of bravado of, how dare you record us? That's ridiculous. And that our lawmakers are getting behind it and are trying to pass laws to stop citizens from doing it is even more frightening.
I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Why would you want to prevent us? Why would you want to prevent citizens from recording how law enforcement does their job?
Because they're criminals and they don't want to be exposed.
Well, you want to allow your... I was going to use a coarse term. I'll say hired hands. You want to allow your hired hands to be able to go out and do their thuggery without being held to task on it. And so for that to be able to happen, then lawmakers go ahead and make laws to protect those people. Heck, go ahead and read just like the regular laws for us and the laws for law enforcement when it comes to like the use of force and the use of violence. Why do you think we can't get cops locked up? Because they can literally beat the shit out of you if they say, well, I was doing it in the duty of my job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much all they have to say is, I was afraid for my life. And we can't do that. We can't go into court and say, I was afraid for my life. Okay, case closed. That doesn't happen to us.
No, because literally every day I'm afraid for my life. But, yeah, but I don't live in fear. It's not going to shut me up from doing what's right.
Right.
And I have no protection.
Definitely not legal protection, right? And not legal protection to use force against that. Right? And so, like, if you're in fear for your life and you see somebody across the street who you think is violent towards you or could do violence towards you, the law would tell you need to retreat. The law would tell a law enforcement officer they need to advance and eliminate that threat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the difference that we're operating with, is that you can have this figure that hasn't done anything yet. Citizens are supposed to respond one way, and law enforcement operates in another, and it's not to just subdue, but it's to destroy.
Well, yeah, and I'm a felon, and I've experienced police brutality because I responded to someone kicking in my door with a shot. I responded with a shotgun because on the other side of the door, no idea who, somebody was kicking in my door. As soon as I opened the door and I had the shotgun, they backed off and went away. Right? If I were a cop, I would not be a felon for doing that. If I were a cop, I could have shot them, and I would not be a felon. But I didn't even shoot them, and I'm a felon. It's like the double standard there when it comes to the use of force is sickening. Look, I realize that police officers, more than private citizens, will find themselves in a do or die situation. I totally get that.
That's a whole different situation.
Well,
right. Yeah. That's a different conversation even.
Well, yeah. But the thing I'm saying is, in those situations, in a do or die situation, we're expected to act differently than they are. And why is that? They have a badge, we don't. Guess what? It's still a human life on the line. Why can they respond to aggression with aggression and we can't?
Exactly.
And if you're honest about it, if they're such trained individuals, if they are our best and finest, you would expect that they would be able to respond, and they do this stuff all the time. Like they tell you, you don't understand because we do this all the time. You would expect then, like a good quarterback, that they would be able to run an offense in a good enough way that they wouldn't have to, like, go 3 and out all the time and then kick the shit out of you. Like, they would literally be able to do their job like trained individuals and not have to resort to levels of violence like they do constantly.
Well, you know, one thing I have been learning in my, from interviewing Alex Salazar and, as a martial artist, I do come into contact with law enforcement officers, and outside of a, setting where they're doing their job. And this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but, some of them strike me as people who do want to protect people and don't want to hurt anybody and that sort of thing. Some of them really scare the shit out of me, and I'm not even seeing them in uniform. But the thing of it is one thing I'm learning from those discussions and such is they're not as trained as we think they are. Like, not that much money is being spent on training them. They're kind of being taught how to put down a violent threat and not how to deal with a violent threat more professionally, or even how to deal with a belligerent person more professionally. You'll find some who just have a temperament where they can do that a little better than others, but they're not really being trained much to do that.
I got a good one for you. So I had a conversation with the sheriff and the chief of police in the last town that I worked in, and it was a college town. And so it was when the police violence stuff was really going to move. And I had a conversation with both of these guys over lunch, and said, so how much funding do you guys have, like, just to teach officers how to interact nonviolently with people who aren't of the same culture? They both said zero.
They're not getting funding for it.
Yeah.
Zero. They get no money. They said, and the sheriff looked at me and said, Mike, I have a mandate from the state that I spend more money on training my officers how to deal with a silo catastrophe, because this was in rural America, how to deal with a silo catastrophe than how to deal with students in our town who are of other ethnic backgrounds. And the police department and the sheriff's department was all white, rural American guys. And the university obviously wasn't. And he goes, we have access and we can tell guys to go do this training, and it's all online training. But yeah, you are spot on that, like, these things that officers actually need to be trained in, they're not even getting the funding to do it.
Yeah.
They're not even being given the time to do it.
I was actually told by a law enforcement officer that they are given 16 hours of training a year in de-escalation techniques. And that's a bigger city law enforcement, department that has more money and more concerns about liability. Oh, yeah. 16 hours a year of de-escalation training. That's pretty much useless.
When you would think it's like a big thing in their job.
Yeah, you would think like departments would want to teach that more, but the dirty little secret is municipalities don't want to give departments that money for that, because the dirty little secret is municipalities actually love brutal cops. They love cops that scare the shit out of people. They love cops that make people afraid to challenge the government. They want people afraid of the government, So when they allot the money and when they allot the resources, they make sure it goes down that way.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Yeah, it is. It's terrible all around. And then you got this whole thing of where if a cop is on charges, they will be prosecuted and judged by and investigated by people they either work with or have at least a peripheral professional relationship with. It makes me want to start a petition drive where citizens, private citizens, if we're under investigation for a crime, we should be investigated by our colleagues at work. And then we should be prosecuted by a family member, and the judge should be somebody we're acquainted with. What if it was like that?
Well, that's the whole deal with the arguments about cases being brought forward by a DA, when the basic job of the DA is to work with law enforcement, that same agency, constantly for their job and for their information. And so what DA is going to screw over a law enforcement department by sending their guys to jail?
Well,
nobody's going to play ball. And so that's the problem. Just like you're saying, they're all inside the same circle.
And most DAs are pro cop anyway, so they want to, they have a bias towards cops. But yeah, you're right. Even if they don't have a bias towards cops, they have to take into account their career when they make a move. They have to take into account future prosecutions, which is how their job performance is judged when they make a move. Because how are you going to do your job as a prosecutor if the police aren't going to back you up when you charge suspects?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's just such a mess over there. It is such a mess with the criminal justice system and law enforcement. It's just like, and the more I look into it in the process of doing research, in the process of talking to people who are involved in that system and stuff, I'm just like, I'm utterly blown away by what a clusterfuck it is. Even the activists on the street who are angry about this shit, they would be blown away to see just exactly how bad it is. It's so fucked up.
Yeah, it's even worse than that.
Yes, it is. It is such a clusterfuck in the criminal justice system. It's just, I'm like a child, wide-eyed with wonders before the mysteries of the universe when I look at this. So, yeah, but, cop watching, filming police, that's a great place to start, and if, I've seen YouTube videos where a few of them where cops are like, oh yeah, film me. My name is so-and-so. My badge number is so-and-so. And this is what I'm doing. Like they want to be filmed, but like there's a really disturbing majority of cops who are like, turn that off. Why are you filming me? That kind of shit.
But when you pull over, you see the cops, you could walk up, you pull it, whatever, but they don't always see you for a while, at least with me. I always know the minute they see me, they'll either turn around and like take a double glance and then go poke their partner, or they'll do this big walk around thing, like, so I'm supposed to not know that you just noticed me, and then go and try to nudge their partner, who turns around and looks at you immediately. It's like the main thing they're worried about immediately is there's a camera on us.
Right.
There's people that got cameras on their chest in some cases, cameras on their cars and others. Why are they?
Yeah, but they can manipulate those.
Why no? But I'm saying theoretically, they're the good guys. They're not supposed to be manipulating or saying, "Oh, the camera broke right in time," or "We don't have video, only audio," or whatever. Yeah, they hate that because what they're going to do is they're going to harass somebody, violate their rights, and if the person even nudges wrong, they're going to start screaming, "Stop resisting, stop resisting, stop resisting, stop resisting," 1,000 times, no matter what the dude's doing, with their knee all in his back. It's a game they play. They have all these little things they do. It's always the same, man. They're corrupt, they're crooked, and they all learn from each other like any other gang. That make me sick. You know how I feel about them, Steve.
Oh, I know exactly how you feel about them. I mean, you have a much more militant attitude towards the police, and I don't blame you one bit. I mean, where you live is like the absolute worst of the worst as far as law enforcement goes.
Yeah.
I mean, God, I'm surprised you aren't talking about picking up a gun and killing them because, like, seriously, man, what's going on out there is so fucked up.
Yeah, I think it's everywhere, any major city.
Well,
It's just we have a
for
we
me,
have a our
it's a
cops are
lot more
famous for
chill.
it.
I mean, where I live, it's a lot more chill than where you live. And consequently, the climate is different. And I'm not saying we don't have our problems here. We definitely have some problems here. I mean, there's some officers I can tell you about who are like nationally famous on this department for the bullshit they pull. But I mean, moving from St. Paul, Minnesota to here, like, I mean, I've experienced some really friendly shit from officers holding the door open for me when I go into Quick Trip and stuff like that. I mean, it's a different thing here than it is where you are. There's still a lot of problems here, but
And you know what I'll say to that every time? They don't do that for everybody. They may do it for you, some may do it for others, but none of them are doing it for everybody. They're treating somebody like crap, or they're standing by and allowing their buddy to treat somebody else like crap.
Well, that is absolutely valid. I mean, how would I be treated if I were black instead of white? That's a good question. Now, I do look pretty white trash, I mean, I've got a battle jacket. That's what we call our vests with metal.
It's totally uncomparable. Totally uncomparable.
Yeah.
Absolutely uncomparable. And I'll give you as, and it'll be quick, how uncomparable it is. I am responding to a call from a family member of another family member who is trying to commit suicide. Pastor, please come try to help. Okay, I'm on my way over to the house. I get over to the house. The police are already there. I don't know that there's a police line supposedly set up. This white cop runs up on me. I'm an African-American male. I don't know if I painted that picture yet or not, but that's who I am. This white cop runs up on me, finger on trigger, gun to chest, grabs me, throws me to the ground. Mind you, I'm going there to do a pastoral act. I wear pastor stuff. Throws me to the ground, throws his knee into the back of my neck and starts screaming at me. The only word that I can get out of my voice is chaplain. His other officer comes over, grabs my wallet and looks through and says, "Dude, that's my sister's pastor." And instantly pulls his knee out of my back and says, "You need to get out of here." And I turned around looking and I said, "You racist motherfucker, you're not getting away with this." And the sergeant came over and grabbed me and said, "Pastor, please come talk to me." And the cop says to me, "Say one more thing and you're going to jail." And I said, "One more thing." And the sergeant looked at the guy and the guy turned around and walked away.
Yeah, I'm not at all surprised to hear that happen.
And so it reminds me, and I'm trying to remember the congressman who talked about, the African-American congressman, who talked about being stopped by the Capitol Police. And he was wearing a suit and tie and wearing the pins only congressmen are given. And what was his name?
I believe it's John Connors.
Yeah. And he was telling this story about how this Capitol Police officer just ran him down like he was trying to sell drugs and rob the building. And here's this guy who is a congressman.
Well,
and it is totally apples and oranges in the way that even, I would say, sort of middle to whatever, lower economic status white people are treated than all black people in this country.
Absolutely. I didn't finish my statement. I was saying, I look pretty white trash. And what I was going to add to that is, even with that, I probably got different treatment than a black person would get.
Yeah, these cops are not your friend. They might be some people's friends sometimes, but when the time comes, they'll turn on you or any other citizen, especially non-white
I
citizens.
I don't consider anybody who works for the government my friend at all. I mean, let me
I didn't
be
mean that
absolutely
sarcastic.
clear
I
on
know.
that,
I meant it just
you
like
know.
they're not
But
even. Someone will come
yeah,
like, oh, I'm on your side. I'm not on the other. Yeah, but they're always on the other side.
oh, they are, you know. And I mean, I've run into some government employees who are nice people. They are nice to me. That doesn't mean I'm ever going to like buddy up to them or anything. You know, I'm just, you know, I give credit where credit's due. If they're nice, if somebody's nice to me, I'm going to treat them with respect, and I'm going to say that person was nice to me. Just like if somebody's a dick to me, I'm going to be a dick back to them and say that person's a dick.
Yeah.
You know, but no, I don't trust government employees. Nobody should trust a government employee because that government employee, even if their particular intention isn't bad, they work with government employees and they talk on the job with their government employees. And you just never know if it's going to result in government employees coming to your house, you know, and taking your kids, or government employees coming to your house and writing you a ticket because, you know, your yard doesn't look right, or result in government employees coming to your house and dragging you out and beating you up and shooting you. I mean, don't trust government employees. Be respectful to them if they're respectful to you, you know, but don't trust government employees ever.
That's what my buddy told me. He films the police a lot. But he was watching the videos. He's like, man, every time I see you, you're cursing them out, you're screaming, you're all up in their face. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm within my rights. All they can do is beat me or kill me. I mean, I've got beaten and had a court case over all this. It went on for over a year, just for filming. Probably running my mouth. I was put in the hospital by him, all kinds of stuff. But it's like, I think if we show fear and do what they say when we're in the right, that just, you know, if you kill me, you kill me. I got it on video.
Right.
It's on you. You probably get off. I don't care.
Well, you know, to
just,
add to my,
Well, guess what, Tim? I do care.
yeah, but no, I mean, but then what he was saying was like, look at it from another point of view, which is like, if you act more, less hateful, I guess would be the word, because I do hate them, and it shows. I can't even look them in the eye without just. But no, he said if I act less hateful and just film the encounter and try to, you know, yes, whatever, sir, whatever, no, don't really want to answer all your questions or whatever. He said then in the end, if they do violate my rights, I'll have more in court because I won't look like I was antagonizing them.
that is true.
I said, but it's my right to antagonize. I'm at freedom of speech. All they do is kill people, you know? It's like you see any other murderer in the street, you're going to walk over and say, hi, sir. Yes, sir. What do you want me to do, sir? Any other dude walking around with a gun, you're going to be... Yeah, you know? And it's like, and these guys...
You that right.
The what?
The Constitution guarantees you that right. The problem is when you go into court, a lot of judges today don't give two fucks about the Constitution. Case in point, Barrett Brown. I mean, that judge wiped his ass with the Constitution in that Barrett Brown case. And he did it blatantly and brazenly and openly. And that's where a lot of judges are. So it's like, you know, you can, I don't know, like your friend's right in the sense that when you go into court, like you have a right to scream and yell at cops. That is actually your constitutional right. But judges don't really care about the Constitution. So my advice in that situation, and this is not like a moral judgment or anything like that, is give them as little to work with in court as you can, because the Constitution isn't necessarily going to protect you in court, because courts less and less every day care about the Constitution.
Well, I'm going to bring this full circle right now, and I say, just like any other journalist that they're persecuting should have the rights, anyone filming the police should have the same rights as a journalist.
Absolutely, they should.
I mean, that's just the way I feel. We have a First Amendment that covers that as freedom of speech.
The First Amendment is so clearly worded on that. Like you cannot read the First Amendment and assume anything other than what you just said, Tim.
Well, obviously some people do somehow. But no, Judith, are you still here? Oh, we might have lost Judith.
Did we?
Yeah, I guess so.
No, I'm
here. Looks like she's here.
Okay.
Did you find the letter yet?
Actually, I've been searching around for it and I haven't found it.
Okay.
The only other thing I can think of is a flight up the stairs in my Bible, because that's where I keep things.
Because the devil ain't looking for nothing there.
Excuse me?
Because the devil ain't looking for nothing there.
Devil, stand behind me.
Oh, that reminds me of a Cradle of Filth T-shirt.
Oh Lord,
Steve.
What?
We're talking about serious matters here. I mean, life-altering matters, and I mean, I look at the difference and what I teach my children from my first two to the baby as far as law enforcement and how I was raised. I mean, I've never told my children to run to a police officer for help, but I was raised to run to a police officer 50 plus years ago. So this difference in what has happened, I really don't. It's heartbreaking. Who do you trust?
It's really heartbreaking when, like, so my first career, I was a firefighter. My son is a firefighter now. And it's interesting to be in careers where even when I was younger and I was a firefighter, like one of my best friends actually became a cop after high school. I became a firefighter. He went and became a cop. And I told him, I was like, dude, we can be buddies when you're not wearing your uniform on, but when you put your uniform on, I don't want to fucking know you. But he totally got it because he knew my youth. He knew what I grew up with. And he totally got it. And he was like, Mike, I'm different. And I said, well, I don't think you can prove that to me.
True friendship there.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he might be nice to you, but what's he doing with other people?
Right.
What's he allowing to have done to other people?
Or I think the worst is he could be the greatest guy in the world and say, I don't do that stuff, Mike. But he lets other fuckers do it. And he doesn't say anything about it and doesn't do anything about it because of the blue line.
Yeah, well, it's the same when you're complicit. Let's go back to Artagon, okay? It's the same.
Right.
Authoritarians are authoritarians.
Yes, they are. And
I believe there's a lot of good police officers.
All right, Judith, we're going to hang up on you now. Bye. No.
I was waiting for that.
I knew that was coming, but it would take a lot more than that. He doesn't scare me.
I'm somewhere in between the two of you.
I think putting the uniform on and other cops that you're surrounded by can change a good cop.
I agree, 100%.
Definitely.
I think it's like, in an odd way, it was like for me as a firefighter, I put on my suit and I know I'm about to run into a damn burning building. And I think it does something just as crazy to cops, and their response isn't necessarily to save life, like firefighters are trained every day to save life. Their training isn't necessarily that.
You use your skills, you use your training. You do not lose them under pressure or the situation you're being paid to take care of.
Right.
Did you ever hose down an innocent building?
Oh, God.
That wasn't on fire by accident? No. See, there's a big difference there.
And so what if he did? There was no damage done besides a little water damage. I mean, come on.
Why the heck did you come in our restaurant and spray all the customers because we thought your building might be on fire,
I have sprayed other houses because one house was on fire, but it was to keep those houses from catching on fire.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just
Was the
police
house
just...
So is that sort of like the same? So I shot everybody in the crowd because there was one person in the crowd that needed to be shot.
Exactly.
So we're headed towards collateral damage. I think I can talk about that one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Pressing.
Tim, I'm sure I've had a lot better experiences with cops than you have.
I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
Well, I'll bet the farm.
And that might have something to do with you being a black man.
I don't.
I'm light as hell too.
You're looking pale on the picture.
Well,
I'm like if white people have suntans, they might be darker than me.
I'm sure in L.A., that's black as far as the cop is concerned.
Oh, yeah, there's a color code. You're either creamy or you're dead.
Pretty much.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That puts you in a different dynamic with them, even beyond the normal African American they might interact with, who they treat like shit anyway.
Pastor, you're taking all the words from my mouth.
We got to get Pastor Mac V doing his own show on People's Radio.
No, you got to push this show with him on it. Remember
That too.
This is your show? Let me help you out there, Steve.
Well, yeah, this too, but I'm just saying he needs his own show, man.
He definitely brings attention and piques your interest. Just his voice, what he's saying, then you're going to listen to his words. He's got my undivided attention.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Got a great broadcast voice, too.
I didn't even ask you to donate any money yet.
Well, you're barking up the wrong tree there.
Yeah, see. So you can't get preachers on.
That's all right. I got good support. I got supporters that work with poor folks, so that's the upside. Is you just have to have good supporters to pay you to work with poor folks.
There you go.
You know there was a grant. I'm going to say it anyways. I believe it was a $50,000 grant. I'm not going to mention the city, to teach unemployed fast food workers how to get a job at another fast food place.
That's terrible.
Please tell me.
What?
Yeah, we know that. Okay?
What? I could do so much more with $50K.
Well, I think probably the grant recipient didn't do anything at all. Just say, hey, this is how you write your name on the top of the application.
Right. Have you flipped burgers before?
That was
You're going to get this job.
Yep.
Wow.
That's
pretty much
crazy.
it.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Waste of money.
No kidding. $50K to be like, oh. I mean, because if you've worked at a fast food place before, no, see, I'm going to stop right now. I'm not going to try to add any sort of logic to the reason behind this grant was written, because it makes no sense.
You know
It
why?
was written so somebody could make
$50,000. The grant was
$50,000.
whoever the grant recipient was just got themselves a job doing nothing.
Yeah, somebody got $50K to do almost nothing.
Maybe we're going to teach you. You don't want the grease. You rather clean toilets, but not from one fast food to the other. I could have even been a little more creative than that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard of some crazy grants before. That's a crazy one.
So yeah, well, Judy,
Yeah,
if you don't have the
Drinking
letter,
and hearing about that one.
I'm going to have to dip out soon. Have you found that letter yet, Judy, or has Bobby found
She's
it?
upstairs. She's upstairs right now as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to have to call it a wrap here soon as well.
yeah, I do too. So yeah, maybe we'll save the letter for the next show.
I would like to read it, but we will. It looks like we're going to be saving it, but
You can paraphrase. You want to tell us kind of what it said?
it just the letter got me, and what got me more so was my daughter's reaction to the letter when she read it. You know, Tim, I get lots of letters. I get lots of things. You know, I'm active on Twitter, social media, that kind of thing. It takes time away. She sees a lot. And for that to pique her interest above and beyond it just being handwritten, and then to read it and say to me, this guy is for real. And I said, yeah, Baba, I know. And she said, no, he's real, Mom. This is a real letter. And I thought, oh my gosh, good job, Matt. Good job, Matt. And Matt is for real. There's nothing about Matt that there's ego in it and anything like that. I mean, he's the sweetheart of whistleblowers. Is just ego-free. Just from what I know of Matt, Matt would take a bullet with no question for humanity and doing the right thing.
Yeah. I talk to his mom sometimes. She's really, really awesome too.
That's heartbreaking. He has wonderful parents, and I've been through a little in my life, and I cannot even imagine the fear, the pain, the suffering that they live in.
Yeah. Yeah, whistleblowers pay a hefty price, and their families pay a hefty price.
Those that love them pay a hefty price.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't have his mother's faith. She's got a very strong faith. And she knows who her son is. She believes in her son. And what an amazing job they did. I mean, that guy's sitting in prison right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, once you're on the radar, you're not going off it easy.
Yeah.
That's not a common statement. What a great job they did. Their son's sitting in prison right now. But no, it makes sense here. But generally, that's not the kind of thing people say.
Right.
Right. What does your son do for a living? He's in prison, being awesome. Yeah. My son's in prison, being awesome.
I'm going to say it again. They did an amazing job with Matt.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Sitting in prison shouldn't be indicative of a parent doing an amazing job. They did. They are proud parents, and I'm proud to call them my friend.
Well, yeah, and for them to stay strong in the face of all the slander and everything, it's like what amazing people.
We all know Matt was railroaded, and we don't want to get into specifics of the case or anything. I just wanted to let you know he made a difference in our life and in our home. I was trying to make a difference, not a difference, but just keep him company and say, hey, we're out here. We understand you've been railroaded. And it turned around, and he made a big difference for us. Because I tried to beat in my daughter's head, we have to do the right thing. We have to speak up no matter how much it hurts, no matter what the price we pay. That's a difficult thing for me to do. This is going to get bad. I buried a child. It's not an easy thing for me to do. Saying we're going to pay the price no matter what the cost is, because I don't think there's a bigger price that our family could have paid. And Matt let her realize that her sister's not the only one. Even though she knew it, and she knows everybody's name, and she definitely knows you, Tim, and Steve. I mean, but to realize through Matt's letter in prison that this guy did the wrong thing, look what happened to him, but you have to do the right thing. It brought her back to, I can't say justifying the loss of her sister. I'm not that big of a person at all.
Yeah.
But it brought her back to there are other people out there that pay hefty, hefty prices. Matt's family pays a price like our family pays, and others. And for her to recognize that, Matt, that's huge to us as a family. Because, as a teenager, I can keep repeating it and repeating it. Actually, I could read you a poem where she says, my mom keeps repeating it and repeating it, hoping I'll get it. So, yes, his parents did a wonderful job.
My thoughts are definitely with them often, with Matt and his parents often, and Lori Love, and with Chelsea Manning, and with Jeremy Hammond, and with Barrett Brown. I mean, these are some ballsy people.
And you see Matt's parents supporting these other whistleblowers because that's who they are, not just because of their amazing son.
Right.
Their son just did not become amazing for no reason.
Right.
His parents played a role in his backbone and having a spine.
It's the same
Yeah.
thing with you and Serena. Yeah.
It's about caring about the fact that government victimizes people, and wanting to keep government from victimizing people, and caring about all of humanity and not just your immediate circle, which is huge.
Well, what brings you on the radar, Steve?
What's
Caring
that?
about people brings you on the radar for government to victimize you.
It does. It does. Governments hate when you care about people. Because they want to separate us from each other and wall us off from each other, and they do it with their reality TV, and they do it with their unrealistic goals of income attainment and body image, and you're never good enough, and I could go on and on and on, and I should just stop, but
well, no, you shouldn't stop, but
it goes back to what I said earlier.
Flabbergasts me is how divide and conquer is still working. It's the same old game, and it's still working. But guess what? This isn't a game. These are people's lives. And if you say, hey, the world's on fire, it's burning, it is.
Well, It goes back to what I said earlier, when I was saying don't trust government employees because they work for the government, and you can't trust the government because the government is evil. I will prove to you right now that government is evil. I can break it down, and in 30 seconds here, I can explain how government is evil. Because in psychology, the textbook definition of primary psychopathy is a need and a desire to control and exploit people. What is government? Government is a means of controlling people. That's psychopathy, which is evil. Therefore, government is psychopathic and evil, and I rest my case.
Well done.
I can comment on that one, and I can say...
Last comment, Judith, then we're going to wrap it up.
Okay, when did the people get in their self-induced comas and fail to realize the government should work for us? The government should not be controlling us. And oh my gosh, my husband's like, yeah, okay, Judy, how dumb are you? Thank you. That's what kills me. I mean, I can't scream it loud enough. Wake up.
And, there can be a whole discussion about can government work for us. But definitely we can say that here, now, in America, in this time, government is definitely not working for us. Government is working against us. And anybody who doesn't realize that is asleep, like dead asleep, in a coma asleep.
Okay, let me take this to a personal level. And yeah, my voice is escalating. My daughter handed the American government and the world the truth on a silver platter. What was the price of truth?
Yeah, absolutely. They, because the truth is inconvenient for them, because truth is inconvenient for government, because government are psychopaths, and government and psychopaths lie.
Exactly.
Nothing is more offensive to a psychopath than the truth.
There you go.
So, but yeah, this has been an awesome discussion, and Judy, I'm so glad you got to jump in with us and join this. And Mac V, like Den Mother couldn't make it, and I was like, well, I got a friend, let's see if we can get him in here, and I was figuring it'd be cool having you in here, but dude, you surpassed all expectations. Like what you brought to this discussion has been amazing. And thank you.
I'm glad I could contribute.
We really
it was a
appreciate
pleasure to meet you.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that we're going to connect.
Well, absolutely. You're both my Facebook friends, so I'll make sure you guys.
Yeah, why don't you connect us in something? Connect me with Tim as well, and as my availability is, I'd be more than happy to hop in on these shows whenever I can.
Definitely. Great. Cool. Let's end this, and I'll talk to you about it for like 10 seconds once we're off the air. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to Judith Poe. Thanks to Pastor Mac V, Steve Shagwell, and myself, Tim BestBudz. See you guys next month.